Catching up really on the week and what's going on at the moment in terms of us at Bain & French, our partners, our clients and our friends, and particularly the focus on humanising work. It's something that we're really passionate about. It's our vision, and really just trying to bring that to life for people in detail on a regular basis. I'm joined again by the wonderful Anthony Fitton. Ant, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm about to be hit in the face by a very large sunbeam. So when that happens, I'll try and move.
Oh, how lovely. That sounds nice though. I like that quote.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful, isn't it, in Brighton? It's, having made the move from London down to Brighton, and you really make it's such a difference.
It is sunny every day. I've got friends who come down from up north and they always say it's, gosh, we get down here and suddenly the sun comes out. Yeah. So yeah, I know how you feel. And I'm joined this morning by my lovely dog Star, who keeps wandering around behind me. So she may enter into the live session at some point this morning. So today, and we were talking about what's the latest news, and there was some big stuff really that's going on continuously in the media. There are still huge challenges for people across the world with the pandemic, and also organizations are constantly looking outwards to see what's going on, what's going to affect them more so than ever before. And one of the things that certainly struck me as a CEO yesterday was hearing the news from Bank of England about a potential prediction of 7.7% growth this year, which is much higher than predicted. And obviously, we've still had a big contraction based on the last year, but potentially getting back to 2019 pre-pandemic levels earlier than had projected. And that's UK business. And I was sitting there thinking, gosh, what does that actually mean? So what does that mean for us on all different levels, in terms of our people, in terms of our clients, in terms of our profit levels? What does it mean for us? And what are our clients going to be thinking about? How does that fit into humanising work?
Yeah. And one of the things that struck me when we were talking about it just now, it's this, there does seem to be a disconnect, because you've got the strategic thinkers and senior leaders who are going future, opportunity, growth, ambition. And of course, we know how much senior leaders are struggling as much as anyone, if not their workloads increased even more. But this is the stuff that energizes them. That's why they're in those strategic roles, right? That's where their natural strengths often lie. So they are getting excited by this premise. There is often a disconnect though with other people, and I'm generalising here, of course, there are other people that are in lower levels that are also strategic and getting excited. But I think there's a lot of exhaustion and burnout still, and there's going to be this kind of, we've got to be conscious of and careful with that disconnect, I think. That there's that kind of exhaustion and excitement, and we don't want the disparity between them to go, well, we've got the wrong people in the wrong jobs, so we need to rethink and rehire. These people are just human and struggling, and how do we therefore in teams, in individual conversations, re-energize, re-excite, re-engage with the purpose? All this week we've been talking about team goals and reconnecting with people, just to make sure that yes, we are getting excited, and we're also creating that path for others to get excited. And what does that mean? And that might be different for different people. And be very conscious of that.
You're so right. There's always this, certainly in large organizations, but I know it happens in small organizations as well. There's this kind of in-between leadership level that are trying to translate the vision and the strategy, which is obviously ever changing at the moment, to people who are trying their hardest to deliver and execute on that strategy and do what's required. And we know that it's really, really tiring. And what I sensed, or I've sensed in the past, is that leaders do have huge positive intentions and care deeply about their people and how they are, but they also have a huge pressure around the commercial priorities of the business, and actually that's looking after people's jobs and livelihoods too. So there's this real tension and balance around, we really want to give people more time and more opportunity and more human workplaces to be able to do what they want to do, but there's also a huge pressure to get this job done, to save this business, to make sure that we catch the wave of growth. You know, we talked about a K rather than having this kind of W curve coming out of the pandemic, and those companies that are doing really well, really super well, and then those companies that aren't, and really are struggling. And still now, week on week, I'm still hearing friends, you know, acquaintances who are losing their businesses, their livelihoods, and it's heartbreaking. So there is a huge variance of experience still happening, even though there's, you know, beams of sunlight coming into businesses, into opportunities, and even, you know, the difficulty around, you know, new travel opportunities are going to be mentioned later on today in the UK around traffic light systems and things. But what about those people who, you know, a holiday right now is very, very far away from possible, and people are still tired and they haven't had a break yet, and that long-term fatigue setting in? How do we help those businesses that are struggling? Because, you know, I saw a great article, I think it was yesterday, about HubSpot, a business I know well and support fantastically, giving their people, you know, some time off as a thank you for the hard work through the last year. But they're on that K curve. They're doing super, super well. They can do that. What about the businesses that would love to do that, but literally cannot afford to do that? How do we help those businesses? And Anna shared an article yesterday as well about this, bringing well-being to the forefront of businesses' minds. There is much more social and moral consciousness now about doing the right thing for our people. How do we do that in a tense, you know, environment? It's fine for those big organizations that have, you know, really got billions in the bank and doing very well out of this. What about those ones in the middle? What about those ones that are still really pushing to get through? How do we help them really focus on making sure their people are okay?
And one of the things that we've been talking about a lot with our clients, and this is you know, the same whether you're in the UK or whether you're a global organization, or, you know, the transparency is the key. Tell the story of what it means, and that can be scary, as we've touched on before in these sessions around shareholders, and actually putting out information. It can be quite tough, and different people will interpret it a different way. With social media, it becomes even more challenging the bigger the business and the more the spotlight's on. But that level of transparency, going, look, if we would love to be giving you weeks off, months off, pay rises. Like, we want to get there. To get there, we have to do certain things for the next 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. Here's our plan for doing it. Don't share and be transparent in those stories. I think that's the same whether you're a tiny business, medium business, or a bigger business. I think that transparency is absolutely critical at the moment, and helping senior leaders to express and tell those stories effectively. We've talked a lot, haven't we, in our live sessions about being vulnerable, but still being vulnerable in an authentic and intelligent way. Like, people are still, if you're a senior leader and being over vulnerable, that can have the unintended impact of scaring people, right? So you still have to have this layer of intelligence about it. But I think transparency is key in telling that story.
It is, isn't it? And there's another thing as well that strikes me is patience. Just gonna set the dog outside.
Absolutely agrees. The wonderful virtual world and live world. I love this. You didn't have to run so quickly back either.
Live sessions, typical. But patience, I think, is the critical piece that I'm feeling as a leader is a real tension for me, because I have impatience. I love action. I love getting stuck in and moving things forward and seeing the opportunity. Exactly as you said, that excites me, even when I'm tired. But knowing and recognizing that my pace is too quick for some people, and that we have to have patience around what things we do focus on, and maybe less priorities, where I used to say, you know, look at those 5 things, let's pick 3 as priorities, let's just go down to 2. And actually maybe this week if things are coming up, let's go down to 1. And actually that's okay. And modeling that and sharing that thinking is the other thing as well, is that I think lots of leaders have these thoughts and are really actually quite supportive of being able to reprioritize or balance or be more patient. But sometimes they don't even have the time to share that in the right way. So it's patience and communication, exactly as you said, that transparency, but also just the regular communication in itself is critical right now, isn't it? Absolutely critical. Being able to say, this week, this has happened. It's changed things. It's mixed things up. I didn't get around to doing that piece, but it's okay. We're just going to put it back. So if you're working on it with me, that's fine. You know, let's just slow things down and focus on the things that are in front of us. And it's almost that daily reprioritization that's really, really massive. And I think that definitely struck us in the pandemic. You know, we went from almost like weekly, monthly kind of reviews to daily. What's going on today? What's the priority today? And that really helped, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's that small step mentality, right? If we win this small step and we take that first step, and that's maybe a small step in comparison to what you maybe would have done 2 years ago, but just take that small step together, right? How did that feel? That felt good, all right? Let's take the next step and build that momentum. I think a lot of people are going from this state of languishing, as Adam Grant's calling it, to this state of thriving, and you can't get there overnight. It's not a sudden change. You've got to have the momentum. That's a 6-month, year process of feeling every day that you're making progress, and that takes time. So of course it takes a bit of patience. Difficult when your business is so under threat, and everyone is talking about agility and speed, and actually your ability. There's news this week on the new airline, like so many new airlines that are opening up, right? Because they're wanting to take advantage of the talent that, like, lots of pilots were laid off, and so everyone's looking for jobs and they're skilled and they can go into that role really quick. Well, it doesn't take a genius to work out that not all of those are going to survive. So how do you then manage and lead a company with that tension that is happening between it's going to take time, it's patience, it's communication. Let's do this the right way for our people and for building a business that's going to last, right? But also, if we don't move quick, we might not survive. That's a really tough challenge for leaders right now.
Yeah, quick, slow, isn't it? It's this kind of constant tension, and living with that, and then being able to actually make sure that we take the space to step away from that tension, that pressure, to be able to, you know, come outside of our heads, look outside to the wider world. And I certainly find with leaders, but with lots of people, actually, not just leaders, it's about how can we continually get bigger perspective, so that what seems really important and critical and in front of us and pressurizing and stressful suddenly just goes back into that big picture, where we're able to see just what's that landscape, what's the end goal. It's not all about these pieces. How can we shuffle things are always moving, and knowing that that's okay. So there's a lot of that kind of stepping back, that big picture perspective stuff that I think just then alleviates. You see people kind of go, yeah, actually, okay, and that's okay. And it's as I said, we're living with lots of tensions at the moment, aren't we? So, but that growth piece is huge, because people know that, you know, there are competitors out there who are going to be struggling, who are going to be looking for any chink, any opportunity to shoot through and do something. And what can we do in the meantime that helps us stay aboard, stay afloat, keep going in the way that we're going, and that steady paced growth. That is actually important for long-term sustainable growth and performance. So, you know, there is also this shift in organizations, and we're one of them. I'm very proud to be looking for evergreen status in terms of looking at the long term and being around for 100 years. You know, we're not set up short-term profit and exit. We're looking at developing long-term relationships, and that benefits clients and the community and everyone around you, to know that you're not going to be left high and dry if you sign off on a large program. You know, there's going to be that long-term relationship. And I think that's definitely been paramount through the pandemic, So where you're talking about those new businesses popping up, that's great with the airline industry, innovating in that space. And there will be people that do well out of it. But there'll also be people who are fiercely loyal to those businesses that they do already have a connection with and a relationship with and care about, actually. And people do care more, I think, more about the brands they have supported now than ever.
You've just touched on a really important piece, actually, that's come up so much in the last month, 2 months, but will only increase in its importance. And that is the fact that people will buy from brands where a human connection is established. Whether that's, I've just ordered my Monzo Premium card. Why? I don't really know, but there's something really human and ambitious and challenging about that bank, right? That's moving, and I think consumer behaviour is going to drive this need for human connection. So it's not just, and we are talking obviously and have been talking about the employee experience and why that is so important to then drive innovation and growth and opportunity and make the most of it. There's also the other side of it, which is if we don't create a more human employee experience, we can't hope to build a human customer experience, which is actually going to be probably the difference between you surviving and thriving, or not even surviving at all. So there's definitely a lot of conversation about that happening. Media companies are more focusing, and you'll see this on bus stations and anywhere there's advertisement. You'll see it's about people. Always about people. More and more it's about people, and it's about social impact. It's about the things that people are caring about, whether that's climate change or anything else. It's a social thing. And financial services companies, they're investing in technology that is making their people and their experience more human. There's actually, you touched on this I think a couple of weeks ago, machines are now telling humans how to be more human. That's the type of technology that we're investing in.
And it really strikes me that we've almost, the way we operate in organizations has become almost to not to ignore, because that's too strong, but to turn the volume down on our human instincts.
Mm-hmm.
And yet those human instincts are the differentiator. Those are the things that are so important to others, and yet for some reason so difficult for us to notice. It's almost that, and I've said this before, our subconscious human ability, intuition, is built on years of experience, of conversations, of things that we've done and faced. That is so complex, and yet for some reason we tone that down. And we don't listen to that inner voice that actually tells us we shouldn't be doing this right now. I don't know why, but we shouldn't be. And thinking to ourselves, why am I thinking that? What experience do I have that's making me feel that way? And really listening to ourselves in a way that we haven't done before. And I think there's a huge, important piece there around shining a spotlight on that intuition piece. Where is that in our heads? How can we bring that to the forefront of our minds in a way that actually helps us? And that's what you're talking about there in terms of the skilled EI, being able to know when it helps us. But just turning the volume up on it. And even sometimes just reflecting on when we have done that can help us realize when we do it more next time, in terms of the more consciously aware we can become of those aspects of ourselves. And that's super hard. That's really, really hard.
Yeah, it is. I think there's a huge opportunity, though, for companies. There's a lot of jobs, as we know, and you mentioned, that are at risk, or people are out of work who are incredibly skilled in those things. So they might not be skilled in the technical skill to do a certain job to move industry. But there's definitely ways now that you can learn that relatively quickly, at least on the job, but definitely, through connection with others and learning online, right? Most things can be learned through YouTube now.
That's it.
So there is an opportunity, I think, for companies to really focus on, okay, what are the humanistic characteristics that we need people to have? Who are the people who are going to stop and go, why is that? Hang on, why have I got that gut feeling? Hang on a minute. and I need to connect with you. And we've been talking all this week, haven't we, about team goals and team connection and building stronger relationships and being aware of each other's strengths. How are we hiring for those people who are relevant of the skill? I think the skill can be learned to a large degree. Obviously, I'm generalising here again. Please no comments on, hey, what are you talking about? You can't just become a financial investor overnight. What's going on? But you get the point. I think there's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, there is.
To think differently.
And for people to have different careers and to be able to switch and change their complete life around if they want to. You know, there's never been a greater time and opportunity to almost explain why. So, you know, when you go for an interview on your career, actually, I wasn't enjoying my career. And the pandemic helped me realize that I'd like to use those skills in a different way. And I think we're going to see that all over the place. And I think that's going to be really healthy for lots of people to be able to reconsider what they're doing, even if it's a challenging, you know, situation and a bump in the road that can be very scary, very, very scary. But also the opportunity as well then for organizations to look at their growth differently. And maybe that's the humanizing the growth aspect that we're really coming back to today, is thinking about, you know, businesses who are looking at growth opportunities, really broadly considering what they actually need now, what are they going to need in the future, how do we bring those people in, and being much more open-minded about how they get there and the people that they need to come together. And that is going to be, you know, a beautiful, more diverse group of teams in organizations than we've ever seen. And we know all the impacts and benefits of that around innovation and creativity, and the opportunities that we have there are going to be really broad. And I'm loving the comments coming through. Thank you for joining us again, Sally. I hope you're enjoying your morning cup of tea. And the authenticity piece as well. You know, Sally was talking about not just intuition, but making sure you are really listening to who you are and what you care about. And people are being more vocal. People are saying more about what they actually care about, as I said, in terms of their consciousness, and how a business is going to respond to that, and make sure that it's okay. There's psychological safety there to talk about things that you care about, and that's fine. We expect it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've talked a lot about meaning, haven't we? And I put a post on LinkedIn earlier in the week, which was a very kind of socialist and Marxist comment, which was around GDPR not being the best outcome and actually it destroying the future of what we're actually focusing on, because we shouldn't be focusing just on the monetary outcome here. What are we trying to do? We're trying to build better business. And an outcome of that is well-being. An outcome of that will be more revenue, will be more profit, will be a lot of things that we better do. And I know I'm being a bit idealistic here, but at the same time, that is probably what we should be focusing on at CEO level, at board level. How do we build a better business? And I think that touches on your point there about meaning, about what's the point, what are we doing this for? And that will guide our authentic decisions to go, actually, that this is the type of business that we want to be going forward. Let's not worry about all that sea of competition and the fact that all the markets are doing this and that. What business do we want to be right now? How do we want to be? When all's said and done, survive or thrive, can we be proud of the business that we have built? I think that's quite an interesting one that more senior people are going to be starting to look at, or should be starting to look at.
I love that. And the thought of, I've talked about this continuously, I'm more and more concerned about the pace of change over the last year means that we're losing our reflective power of learning. And I think it needs to come back with full force. I think we need to be doing more reflective learning, but also reflective into the future, as you just said there, if that makes sense, in terms of being able to project and say, what do we want our legacy to be? What do we want to be proud of? What do we want to look back and say, God, I wish I did that. That being able to be able to put yourself in that future position and consider what it is can come from reflecting on where you are right now and saying, actually, am I already proud of what I've done? Am I already happy with the legacy that I'm leaving in this situation? And if you get into that practice, you're much more likely to be able to then say, okay, and so how do I get to this point? So that future projection, and then using that reflective activity to make sure that you are actually, on the right pathway. And purpose-led businesses, it's absolutely fundamental. All the research at the moment is showing that is going to be really critical to people. If you're looking at growth, we're gonna, there's going to be recruitment issues across the world with people trying to grow their businesses and recruit people through. Having a purpose-led business is going to drive whether or not you're getting people through the door who actually want to come and care about what you care about. And how do we bring that human intuition, understanding, experience into the brand and the purpose, and actually do it, not just pay it lip service? It's almost like it's been there, steadily growing, but there's a big shift, isn't there? There's a big era shift coming, which has been brought about a lot by the focus on mental health and well-being over the last few years, that is making us look at businesses and organizations and how we work with people and flipping it and just saying, we can't do what we've been doing for so long. We've got to take a new, more kind of, more human approach, but we've got to take a much more positive step now in terms of challenging ourselves and saying, as people and solutions people, is what we've done good enough, actually? Because it may do something, but surely we can be more innovative. Surely we can do more.
And I think, again, so from a professional standpoint, what do we as people development professionals and management consulting firms and people, it's not just about the people, it's about the business. How we then help build that momentum that I was talking about earlier, because this sort of change isn't going to feel comfortable. It's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be a partnership approach. This is going to be, what do we need to focus on right now to get that one step closer? How did that feel? Well, that felt quite good. Well, so did the research and the evaluation that should we take the next step together? Yeah, okay. And actually taking that more partnership approach with people is going to be more fundamental now than it's ever been. And really to get to know the people within the business that it's having an impact on. Again, if we're seeing with media companies where people is at the heart of what they do, we as people development professionals have to get a lot closer to the people within those businesses. And it's hard because, typically you work with senior teams or senior elements and you might run a workshop with the people, but actually, are we listening to them? Are we going back to them? Did it work? Did it not work? How's that feeling for you on the ground? And making it so super practical. One of my clients, we've got 2 minutes, but one of my clients this week, I went, but everyone's head is so full. Can we just move from the coaching bit to being a little bit more directive? Can we just give people what they want for a second? Actually, there is an element of that. And when your head's full and you just want to be told what to do, as people development professionals, we know that's not necessarily the best long-term strategy, but right now, to help them take that first step, maybe that is. And we're just going to have to flex, I think, a lot to make this change happen that you just talked about.
And listen as well, and be able to just engage people who have the time and want to engage, and allow other people to go with the flow if that's where they need to be right now, because they're maybe focusing their cognitive attention on too many other things. So what a wonderful conversation. You have totally G'd me up for the day. It's Friday and I'm looking forward to the rest of my very full day at the end of a busy week. But I guess just really grateful and really thankful that we're in the situation we're in, having the great conversations we're having, and supporting so many people out there in lots of different situations. So my very best to everybody today. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, whatever it is that you're planning on doing, and that you can maybe take a moment to think about the things that we do have. in these times. It's sometimes helpful to kind of re-energize that way. So look, we're coming to the end of our half an hour Friday Live every Friday at 8:30 in the morning, just talking about what's going on currently and how humanizing the world of work is going to happen in that context for us and our partners and clients. So please join us again next week. Thank you, Sally, for your wonderful comments coming through. It's lovely to have you joining us regularly. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined us today. And I'm sure I'll speak to you shortly.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.